right, 3, 2, 1, go. We are here.
Beautiful.
So yeah, okay.
Here
So
we
we're
are.
gonna start looking at get over here. And I'm gonna transition.
Oops.
All right. So yeah, we're gonna look at our OKRs like we will every time. I think we made one change since last time, a very very sort of like vague one. Sometime this year, we'd like to publish a white paper.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's a good idea. I think that makes sense. But also like sometime this year, and we'll just have to keep an eye on where to slot that in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something we can talk more about as we go.
Yeah, yeah.
The right time to do it depends on what should be in it, kind
Yep,
of.
yep, yep, yep,
Like how much detail about what.
yep. And I'm starting to try to write and publish a little
Cool.
every day. If we,
Not every day. That's a lot.
yeah, a little every day. I mean, it might be publish bad stuff a little every day. Not spend a ton of time on it, but so I can hopefully work. That'll help me work on that some. Um, but yeah, Q1 2020. Here we are. We want an alpha release of Squad Chess, which would have real matches, playable online, submittable and shareable components and formats, and curation of components and formats. Literally what we would want before we go mention to Vitalik that he can make 1.58D chess on this platform, or in this game, in the Squad Chess.
Yep. And then our other goal here is to make the stream
good. Getting there.
12 streams
Yep.
in the first 3 months.
Yep.
Get a couple guests for 2 of the streams.
Yep.
And interact with a few new viewers that just discovered the stream, hopefully.
Yep.
So we're working on that one. We haven't done any of the guests yet, but we have
Nope.
a bunch of people we can ask and should be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think we're waiting to get a little bit of just this is our second sort of back doing it regular. Hopefully the bitrate or the my internet connection is going to be better today. I moved the router, and I'm connected to the router that's connected to the internet, and it's like been moved closer to, rather than an extension router which is connected over Wi-Fi, to another Wi-Fi router that's connected to the internet. So
yeah.
So far so good
Cool.
on that.
Yeah, so I think that these sound good still. I don't
Yep.
think we need to. I don't think we need to adjust them.
No,
and I don't think we necessarily need to look at the rest of this right now.
Nope.
I think we did that. So let's go check out the projects.
Yep.
We've got 3: one for streaming, one from the long-term abstract game, and the Squad Games alpha release.
Yep.
Kind of ignoring this one for now. So we're just looking at these first 2.
Yep.
So streaming. I'm gonna say we did improving the internet connection, or at least, I mean, you certainly did some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
From what you just said.
If it doesn't work, we'll have to do it
put
again.
something else in there. We're also using a native browser video chat, although I don't know if we've solved that problem yet. Maybe we should leave it.
Yeah, we're trying native non-browser video.
I mean, this sounds good in terms of the connection so far, but
yeah,
it would be nice to be able to present specific windows.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Let's
nice thing.
Let's move native non-browser video to done, but let's also add it to do with all of the like features we want to be able to do on the stream, like that can't right. We want to be able to share camera and specific windows simultaneously.
Time. Anything else we should put in there for now?
That's the one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can expand it if we want to.
Yeah, and this is still not been started, so
nope.
I think that's
and I think we're not ready.
That. Okay, so let's go check out. Or I guess actually we could just quickly archive some of these cards. Well, is there really a reason to do
No,
that?
no, no, no. We move everything to done. That green bar goes all green, and then we archive the project.
Feel good.
Yeah, feel good.
And we feel good. Okay, so here's the other one, the long-term aspect game, which is automatic chess.
Yep.
Although we're working on this, um,
Interim.
yeah, intermediate.
Yep.
Medial. I don't know what the right word is. Game, which is just squad chess. Okay, work on game engine. I'm gonna say that we did that. I mean, it's not like a finished thing, but the engine I feel like is maybe finished.
Yeah. We'll see today. It sounds like you've got it working though. Yeah.
I'm sure we're gonna need to change stuff, but
Sure. Yep.
But generally, it's.
But like
it's,
you're gonna demo a
that
game
part of it
engine
is
today,
working,
so
yeah.
cool.
Great design doc. We still need to finish this. This is kind of a bigger.
Yep.
This is in progress, but it's. I mean, I guess we can put it in progress.
Design.
This seems
the
like
long-term.
a.
Yeah.
This is a. Or
Yeah,
you know what? Actually, here let's. I'm gonna edit this one
Yeah,
to
okay.
specify that this means automatic
Yep.
chess
Yep.
document docs.
Yep.
Yeah, so that way these make sense
Yep.
as separate
Yep.
to-dos. Okay, and then we can add more to-dos, but I think we just wanted to make sure these projects were up to date with where we are now. And I think we can go look at code now. So, what do you want to look at first? We had a few pull requests this past week.
Yeah. Do you want to get the sort of?
I've got this one ready to go. If we.
Yeah. Let's save that for the finale.
Okay.
Let's do the. I mean, we don't even need to look at. Yeah, let's look at the mock meta store, just because that's just like some housekeeping.
Yeah.
Basically. So what this did was a couple of things. It eased the burden for new developers, depending on what they're working on. So right now, right now we're working on stuff that doesn't actually need Holochain up and running.
Yep.
Which means it doesn't actually need Nix Shell, which means it doesn't actually need Rust. And that's a big, huge honkin' part of the build process is that downloading the Nix shell to begin with, the Nix package thing, whatever it is to begin with, and then like installing Rust and compiling all that stuff. That's a huge, huge, huge part of it. The other thing that happened here is I removed the dependency on Docker for building the JavaScript stuff. So that just makes it. So I was having problems running this in my container-based Linux distribution because it didn't want me to be running Docker in my Docker, basically. You can do that,
Right.
but it's like extra stuff and an extra layer of confusion. So I wanted to give developers who do want to do containerized stuff the control to containerize their development the way that they want to without needing to do our way of development.
Right. So basically what you did to get the version control that Docker also helps with is just use npx here.
Yep.
So that we're not executing whatever random version of Ganache they might have.
Right. So Ganache is installed in the curation market. That CD curation market is changing directory into the curation market package. That package has a package lock JSON, and npx will use the Lerna will build devnet depends on build. It should probably depend on build bootstrap too. I haven't had any problems with this though. So
does devnet depends on that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's been working fine, so we won't touch it yet. But in any case, that package specifies a version of Ganache CLI, and npx will use that installed version.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then that line 95, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, this I don't really know what's going on.
So that is that dollar exclamation point in
$bang.
dollar bang, cash bang. that
Is that a people say bang in programming?
yes,
Okay, because
yes.
I learned that from, I don't know if you're gonna know what this is. Max MSP
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I know Max MSP.
was where I saw bang, and
Yeah,
so that's what I associated with.
that's programming.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
That's some of the first programming I ever did was
yeah,
stuff with
yeah, yeah. Max, that's we should do
yeah,
a whole
Pure Data.
yeah
Yeah,
pure
I
data.
actually
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wrote a piece in Pure Data
Oh, that's so
where
cool.
but it wasn't even a Pure Data. I just didn't know how to program otherwise, so I
We
was
need
using it as a computer basically.
we
Um,
should make a collaborative music making game with on Squad Games and Pure Data.
that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
a
actually
great idea
that sounds really really fun.
because the engine is already perfect for it.
Yeah,
And there's no
exactly.
reason not to do visual art as well, right? Like,
Right.
actually, that's a great one to do, right?
Yeah.
Did you see any of those? The one that I'm thinking of most recently is like Reddit has been doing these things where you can anybody can go in and change a 1 pixel of a huge
Yeah,
canvas,
yeah, yeah. I've seen that stuff.
and
Yeah.
you're limited by how often you can change it, and
Yeah.
you get this
Yeah.
insane looking, But imagine if you could do that, but actually kind of select over time.
Yeah.
People it could fork and diverge, and like
You could
instead of being this like
quadratically fund the pixels.
yeah, okay, if you really wanted to go crazy. But what I like is what ends up happening in those things is that it just becomes a big war, right? Like these people want this
Oh.
section to be the Swedish flag,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's actually the foot of Homer Simpson that these other people were
Yeah,
doing, and so
yeah,
they
yeah.
keep switching it back and forth, and you end up with this horror show smorgasbord thing, right? Where
Yeah.
everybody has carved out their little piece of the thing,
Yeah.
but sometimes they like infect each other.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's a group of people that decide to coordinate on like just coloring in Homer Simpson red just to troll.
Yep, yep.
But then the Homer Simpson people come and put it back.
Yep.
Whereas if it's forked, you could get people actually agreeing on kind of their direction for the whole canvas and doing all sorts of crazy, cool, collaborative things instead of just fighting the whole time.
communal ownership self-assessed tax for owning pixels. All right. Can we get back to GitHub?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Cashbang
Right.
is a sort of special I don't know what to call it character, but it always represents the process ID of the previous command.
Ah,
So
so
it's going to be
basically.
the process ID of that ganache, and then we put that in build devnet, and then when we
Right.
clean, if we go up to make clean,
I don't know which one of these
somewhere.
that is in. I guess I can just.
I think I've got. Oh, I'm.
It might not be. Did that get changed? It might
Well,
not
it
be
won't.
here.
It won't say make clean.
Oh, learn a clean? No, that's a
Uh,
different thing.
Yeah, clean. So see there on 45.
Oh, right, of course, it won't say make clean.
So if there is a file, or yeah, the new 45.
Oh, right.
If there is a file build devnet, then kill the process that is the ID that's in that file.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Right, so that solves one of the problems we were having earlier with starting and restarting your
Yep.
your development environment.
Yep.
Which is that we can when you do clean, we could tell it, hey, reset all this stuff so that you try to install it again.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't telling it kill Ganache, so you don't try to restart Ganache
Right.
when it's already started.
Right. So that I think those are the
Okay,
only.
that makes sense.
Actually, no. There's more in the make file for make metastore.
Yeah, we did go past some of that. Here, yeah, there's this stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're not. Okay, so that's contributing .markdown, but we can start there.
Oh yeah, right.
If
Oh,
you're
well, maybe we can just skip to the part of the make file that has this. I guess
Sure.
it's just this probably.
Sure. Yeah. So if mock metastore is a environment variable set to true, it will run the script
Right.
start mock metastore. Otherwise, it will
Try to start the real metastore.
it will package the holochain and run it. Yeah.
Right.
So if you go back up to the contributing MD, the way that you say that you want the mock metastore is just putting it in line with your make command. So mock metastore equals true, make Squad Games Web.
And this is just the way you do environment variables
Yep.
in a single.
Yep.
Environment variables that are only true for a single command.
Yeah. So for example,
or only exist for a single command. I should
right,
say.
right. So for example, if you want to change your editor, if you don't want to use VI for your merge when you say git merge, and it needs a commit message, if you want to use nano, you can say editor equals nano git merge.
Right. Right. Okay, cool. That makes sense to me. Seems useful.
Yep. Yeah, a huge convenience thing, right? Just like most of the time we're not, like when we're working on Squad Games Web, we're not working on, we don't need the like validation stuff that Holochain gives.
Yeah, and this is related to one of the concepts about maybe a month or two ago, where we do have this modular system. It's the SDK has a bunch of pieces that plug into it, and then that plugs into a game, and it's helpful if we mock a lot of the functions so that we can develop the pieces separately and properly. So like we're not constantly having to say, well, we developed this, well, Holochain did this, but now Holochain does this, so we have to go back and switch this, that whole daisy chain.
So what this mocks is the SDK, not the like Holochain everything, right? So just the plug point. So if we want to go, it's not actually that big. If we want to look down,
it should be in here, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it right there. So it's basically a catalog of functions, just like the metastore, just like a Zome is. And so
these are the mocked SDK functions, right?
Yep.
Create definition.
Get definition. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So that's all the functions from the.
And it just holds stuff in memory, like it's stateful. So if you create a definition and then get it, you'll get it.
Right.
But it's all in memory. It just builds a big old JavaScript object with the stuff, and if the process dies, it's all gone. But that's fine. That's actually convenient because every time you start up your dev environment, a sort of add mocks to metastore will start you from a known good spot.
And in theory, this should let us mock basically everything we want this to do. We can go all the way to P2P, passing the stuff back and forth in a live session between two people. And
in fact, our shims works with this already.
Right. Great.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know that should we look into how these functions work?
I mean, I can.
Kind of just described it.
This is sort of a technique that we have used a lot, but we're using it again here. Basically, there's that definitions dictionary, or what is it? Functions? No, definitions.
There is definitions. There's catalogs, definitions, and then there's mock zomes.
Right. So the mock zomes dictionary, there's the definitions zome. It's the only one that we have so far, but if we add another zome, its name would go in there. And then create definitions, those are all sort of just it's a dictionary of
this is a translation from the Rust name of the function to name of the function.
And then down here in mock connection, we're doing a WebSocket server that is listening for call, which is the only thing that the Holochain.
That's what the Zome does. All of its. It calls all of its functions through call.
A call, right? Exactly. And so then all we do with the call is we look up the Zome and we look up the function, and if either of those don't exist, we error. Otherwise, we call the functions method with the args that we were passed.
Right.
and that's it. So adding zomes and um, and new methods functions is as easy as updating that dictionary with another function.
Right.
And
Did you talk about this stuff? The server register.
So yeah, server register registers WebSocket sort of, I guess, endpoints. They're not really endpoints, but like anything sent
I see.
sent into info instances will return that ID, mock instance ID.
Gotcha.
And that mock
Okay, cool.
instance ID is by default just like mock instance ID, I think. But it's also configurable. So
Yeah,
so
that seems to be what this implies.
but will error if it's
something else.
not the right one.
Yeah.
Like it should. Or like the real one would. And then, yep, the mock zome is that, and if the zome doesn't exist, we throw an error. And
yeah, cool. No, this looks
Yep.
great. Yeah, this seems like this definitely puts us on the path to talking about what's the minimum we need.
Yeah. Yep.
This Metastore stuff to be doing to get.
I mean,
alpha.
it also lets us be like, we're not totally dependent on any holochain timeline with this.
Right.
They have to be finished by the time, they have to be in production before we're in production. But as long as they get to production before we do, then we can keep working.
Yeah, I mean the nice thing about the holochain stuff is that we can fake that side of things in a way that doesn't really get many of the benefits that make holochain cool, but will work for most end users that don't care very much about security and owning their own data and stuff like that. Like, we can make a version of this that just stores the data in your cookies, and it would basically work. It would basically work.
Yeah, right. It would be attackable, but it would work.
Yeah, it wouldn't be secure, and if you cleared your cookies,
people could play with it in good faith.
Right. As long as there wasn't, we wouldn't recommend people to do anything too intense with it, but it would let people play the kinds of cool demonstration situations of getting a bunch of people submitting things and passing them back and forth. And, getting that whole dynamic going, you could do that way. So
So that's that.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, this looks great. Can't wait to plug that in to the thing. All right, so let's go back to pull requests. Update OKRs. We don't need to look at that. This is just this was a tiny thing, right?
Yeah. NPM audit fix upped the version of some things. Although I think it's still finding a problem in yarn.lock. Are you using yarn or NPM?
There was something that used yarn. I think one of the aspects maybe used yarn. I'm not sure we're
automatic
using it
chess. Okay,
it's probably automatic chess, and I don't think we're actually going to end up using it pretty much anything
okay.
that's in that package anymore.
Okay.
Because I think we're going to end up building on squad chess, and then automatic chess is going to get built off what we built in squad chess, which is actually quite different from what's in automatic chess right now.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So my guess is eventually that library is just going to, or that package is just going to go away and get replaced with a totally fresh.
Okay. Then we can probably just delete that lock file so that the message goes away. But we can do that later.
Yeah. We're not really running that right now anyway. So.
Yeah, I think the Chess.js rebuild and the Mithril board are the two super interesting
I think we can
things.
go straight to Mithril board, actually.
Okay, great. Because everything
well,
it's all in there.
In here. But we can definitely, I don't know if it's all going to be in files changed, but it's definitely all in this branch, all in this code base. We just need to know if rules is in here. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So this is the chess engine.
Cool. Can you increase the size of the text just a little bit?
Yeah.
Is
that good?
Yeah.
One more? Maybe?
No, that's good.
Could do one more.
Sure.
Yeah, this seems fine. This is no longer looking in the right place. Here we go. Okay, so this is I mean, I'm not a game developer, so I'm going to use this word wrong, but this feels to me like what I would call the game engine.
Yeah.
This
yeah,
is the
yeah,
thing
yeah,
that's telling everything where it's supposed to go
Yeah.
and be. It's not actually moving the things around. It's not
Nope.
actually producing the graphics, but it is telling the graphics what they should look like, sort of.
It's maintaining and updating the state machine.
Yes.
Yeah, I
This
would
is
call
the
that an
state
engine.
machine. Maybe
But
this
also,
is
I'm
the
not a
state
game developer, so.
and basically, this is just what we talked, just implemented what we talked about last time. So
Yep.
it's dramatically simpler in terms of code from the
Yep.
the other chess.js library, or just chess.js, the library, which is pretty cool because it's a way generalized version of it, and yet it's much less code.
Yeah.
It's, I'm sure, not as fast, but I think it certainly seems fast enough to do what we need to do.
Yeah. Totally.
What do
not,
we have going on
It's
here?
not fast enough to tell someone to end the game at checkmate, but it's fast enough
Yeah,
to play otherwise.
that's right. Yeah, one of the big savings we did was not have to try to calculate check.
Yeah.
So here's how it works. So we've got mechanics. This is a dictionary of functions that have the
Yep.
same signature. So they all take in the same inputs, and they return an array of what I'm calling turns, which is
that
would typically be called moves.
Yeah, we
We're
had
calling
some
them
talk
turns
about
right
that. It's
now.
weird. But
It is
yeah,
weird. It's what we have in here is working in terms of
Yeah.
like things aren't overlapping.
Yeah.
Like turns lines up kind of nicely with like turn number.
Yeah.
And like things like that.
But
anyway, the language
turn,
can certainly.
A turn is an action.
Right. A turn is you take a turn,
Yeah.
and your turn is you move one of your pieces.
Right.
Right. So these turns are a piece move.
You could almost think of it, and I don't think we should rename it to this, but you can almost think of it as turn taken.
Right. Except in this case, they haven't been taken yet.
But these, yeah. But right, those are the turns that could be taken.
Yes, these are like the legal turns that could
take.
happen.
Yes.
In this position that we're returning.
Right.
So these functions are different sets of rules that pieces can follow to determine their legal moves.
Yeah.
Basically.
So
a piece could have the move like if you think about it like magic cards, that's a really good way of thinking about the component.
Hey Ezra, when you move, when you jump back to Discord,
I keep doing that because I want to see your face. And
yeah.
I just want to see your face.
I appreciate that.
Okay, I'll stop doing that. So and on a magic card, right? You've got the magic card, and there's some about it, a name and that, and then it sometimes on the rules text will have a mechanic like trample.
Yeah.
And if it has trample, then when you're doing something with that card, you have to say, okay, it has trample, so this is one of the things that can happen.
Right.
And that's sort of what's going on here. So if you have a piece that has the move mechanic, it's going to come with a set of params that go with that move mechanic. And when you ask the game, I have this pawn here, what are the possible legal moves this pawn could make? And the pawn has move with a set of parameters, then this is the function you use with each of those parameters to get the possible turns you could take using that pawn.
Yep.
So right now we've only got two mechanics. So we boiled everything down and cut some stuff out to get down to two mechanics. One of them is move, and this is when you can move a piece from one square to an empty square.
Yep.
So it has to be empty. And capture, which is where you can move one piece onto a square that's occupied by an enemy piece only. So you can't move it to an empty square. You can't move it to a square that's occupied by a piece of your own color.
Right.
So they don't overlap, right? You can't have a move. You can't have a turn that's the same from square to two square. That's both a move and a capture. It can only be one or the other.
Yep.
Which is nice.
You could imagine a mechanic like move through capture that does allow you to move. You have to land on an empty space, but you can move through opponents and capture any opponent that you've moved through.
Yeah.
But we haven't implemented that. We
Yeah.
could if we decided to, though.
Yeah, you can also see that the code is quite similar.
Yeah.
For the two.
Yep.
There are some important differences.
Yeah.
You can see that these requirements are a bit different. This could obviously be fed in as part of the functions.
Yep.
You could generalize a bit of this out. It does have this part, this is actually significant.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Basically, if a bishop is moving to empty spaces, and it can move in one empty space, then you still need to check. Well, could it also move two empty spaces? Oh,
I have an idea about that. Move the browser to the right a little bit.
Yeah, so I can just see.
And then there you go.
I mean, I don't mind not doing it. It's just
it's a habit. Yeah, no,
I've apparently established the habit.
That's fine.
So
a bishop moving.
Yeah, so a bishop, if it moves one square, and you're trying to check all the legal turns the bishop could take.
Right.
It moves one square. You also have to check, well, can it move two? Can it move three? Can it move four? And as long as there's empty squares, it can keep going.
Right.
With the capture, if it's like it can capture one, well, it can't also then keep going and continue to capture, right?
Right.
It's done.
Right.
So that's
as soon as you found your first capture, you're done.
That's as far as you can go.
Right.
So that's a significant difference as well.
Right. So yeah, this is
the most significant difference between the two functions, actually, because these are really modular. These just like, hey, if this, stop. You can pass those in.
Right. What are the stop conditions? Yeah. This makes me think that we will be able to componentize or drive mechanics with metadata. But I think we were right to not do that to begin with.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of flexibility even in these two mechanics.
Totally.
And we can also, and probably will add a few more mechanics just to give people more options of what they can do.
Right.
And there will just be so many combinations even from those. I don't think we'll feel the need to componentify mechanics right away, but it does seem like it will be possible.
Yeah. So in order to do 1.58D chess, this would just need the promotion mechanic.
Yes, it needs promotion, and we also don't have in the Zome right now. So you would need to change the board. Mm-hmm. You would need, and to have this work for that.
Yeah.
You need to the format needs to be able to include a board and pieces.
Right.
And then you need to be able to tell the difference.
Right.
So that might mean it's time for us to go back to Zome and add like a config section to formats.
I think it is, and I think that'll be quick.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it would be hard.
Yeah.
And that's all that's needed. It's really not a big change.
Yep.
Okay, so let's keep going. So we've got a set of pieces. We just need to register the pieces.
Yep.
Got a function to register the pieces. Now we get into the actual thing. So really what all of this is leading into is this function down here, take turn.
Yep.
And what this function does is it takes in a game state object that has in it the position. So that's all the squares on the board, and if there are pieces, what pieces are in those squares.
Mm-hmm.
A turn number, which is just the number turn of the game, which also lets you know which player's turn it is, which is the more important piece of information right now. And all the possible legal turns in that position.
Right.
Which you got from this function the previous time. So we'll see that in a second. And it also takes the turn you want to take. So and that's just an object that has a from and a to. So it's saying I want to move whatever's on this square to whatever's on that square.
Yep.
And do whatever is associated with that.
Yep.
One thing that's significant there is that that has built into it the capture mechanic. So we didn't have to do anything extra, right? Because if I just say move the bishop to this square and there happens to be a knight on that square, it's going to just replace the knight, right?
Right. So it is a fundamentally.
It's a little bit cheaty.
Sure.
Because it so happens that it works for both mechanics.
But what that says is that it's a fundamental rule of squad chess that no more than one piece can occupy a square, and that pieces cannot move other pieces out of their squares.
Right. Yeah. Um,
This implementation makes it impossible to like make components that would move, that would like displace pieces without taking them.
right. Yeah. So you would need a more complex data format for turn.
Yeah.
That's not just from and to. Right?
Yep.
It would need to be like multiple froms and tos, or maybe
Or
some just twos, right? Just
or
adding a piece to the
or
board
legal
or something like
or legal turns would just literally be the set of future possible positions, and this is the future possible position I've decided to
that. Right. A turn is
move
just
to.
a position.
Yeah.
Right. The data format of a turn is a position.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That might be the best way to do it because that supports any possible
Yep.
future mechanics, right?
Yep.
Except for mechanics that even mechanics that change what the board shape is.
Right. Even mechanics that say
Yeah.
randomly choose pieces from the format and set them up.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So right now that's only a from, and then this will just does a little checking to make sure that you even submitted a turn. Then it's gonna. This is the one time we're checking this. It checks that the turn you submitted is in legal turns.
Right.
And because, so this is just a thing in JavaScript. In order to check that an object equals another object, you can't just use a regular comparison. So we had to write a function for that. That's fine. It's this kind of thing is much nicer in Rust, where it's much clearer about what it's doing, and
Yeah.
the fact that like, hey, it's not actually trivial to compare data, and
Yeah.
we don't do it by default. So, and you should know that you're doing that. And
Yeah.
here it's just like, hey, this doesn't work, and you just have to figure out that this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so that's what that's doing. It's just checking that that turn exists in legal terms.
Right.
And then as long as it does, then we're going to update the position. So this is the previous position. We just add the turn into it. That generates a new position. So this would be even easier if turn was just a position, because
Yep.
we would just not have to do this at all.
Yep.
Because if it's legal, we're just going to return that as the new position.
Yep.
And so that's,
and the turn that
that's
we
cool.
if legal turns is a list of positions, turn can be an index into that list.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't even need to be the full data type
Yep.
itself.
Yep.
That sounds pretty good to me. I feel like that's the future of this library.
Yeah.
And then we were returning a new game state, which again is the same. This data signature again, a position, turn number, legal turns, and the legal turns we are generating using a function to generate turns, which we'll go take a look at now. This is the big
That's the
function
meat
of the library.
That's the engine. Generate turns
Yes,
is
this
like
is really the engine.
the
So
engine
here's
of
what
the
we're
engine.
doing here.
Yeah.
We're putting in a position and a turn number. So that's just the game state without telling you already what the legal moves are, the legal turns are. Here's another mechanic that's baked into the engine right now, the idea of a king.
Yep.
So I gave pieces a sort of a hidden mechanic, which is just king equals true.
Yep.
Or just whether they have the quality king.
Right.
And this is just so that we can enter the game.
Yep.
So this thing is assuming that basically each player is going to have at least one piece that has the king property, and that if a player doesn't have any king property pieces left, they have lost the game and the game is over.
Right. They have 0 moves they can make.
Yeah, and actually all this is doing in that just so it's returning and saying there's no legal moves, and then the UI can say, okay, well, that means someone won.
Yep. Yeah, the person
and
who
it was the last person who moved.
the
basically.
person who offered you a position where you had no legal moves.
Right, the person who did a move that returned
Yep.
a position with no legal moves won the game.
Right.
Yeah, so what this is doing, it's saying for every square in the position, check that there's a piece in that square. If there's not, just move on. Check that the piece is the color of the player whose turn it is.
Yep.
So if it's a black piece and it's white's turn, we don't need to check if that piece can do anything. It can't do anything.
So I think it's good to point out here that these are all fundamental immutable rules of this game that
Yes.
we're building. These
Yes,
cannot
and-
be modified by components.
Yeah, some of these you can imagine maybe we would want to change in the
Right.
future.
Right.
Probably not this first one. Like, it's hard to imagine something where like an empty square can do something on its own, but maybe.
Right. Right.
You know, maybe there's a version of chess. Maybe that's just a different game where any empty square you can use your turn to put a pawn on that square or something like that. Right.
Right. Or if you have 5 pawns, you can use your turn to put a pawn on that
Right.
square.
You know, and that
Yeah.
would require changing this part of the engine itself.
Yep. Yep.
There are some mechanics that it would be hard to add as modular mechanics. There are some mechanics that you might need to just fork the game.
Yeah, and yeah,
You know?
right.
Which I think is fine. I
Oh,
think
totally.
It's always going to be like that with any piece of software. It's
Yep.
like some of the stuff makes sense to make modular. There's other stuff where it's like, you know what, just fork it.
Well, and that's why we're not starting with this thing being like, okay, the game is the JavaScript engine and the components is code. Go for it.
Right. Yeah.
It's that can work.
Right. There's a reason. I mean, this is the, to my mind, one of the main arguments against blockchains have governance. Just fork it. Right. It's
Yeah.
like,
Right.
Well, most people can't do that,
Yeah.
and it's a pain in the butt. And
Yeah.
like you're right. It's just
Yeah.
There's a reason that's not a super democratic.
Yeah,
way
we want to find a nice balance that lowers the barrier to entry for participation.
Yeah, our bet is basically that, hey, there's a lot of people with a lot of good game ideas that don't necessarily know JavaScript.
Right. Yep. Totally. Yep.
So we think it'll be a better system if we let those people express.
Yep.
So anyway, we're checking those two things.
Yep.
As long as those two things are passed, then we're gonna grab the piece. So this we're getting the piece out of the pieces dictionary so that we can actually get its full data, like its mechanics, its params for those mechanics. That stuff is not stored in the position. All that's stored in the position is like the name of the piece, basically, which will probably be an ID.
Which is what kind of piece it is. So whether it's a
Right,
pawn or a
and
king
the
or
piece ID is just the key for the piece
Yep.
dictionary
Yep.
that we've made here. So we're just getting for that square of the position, the piece ID, and then plugging that into pieces that we registered above, and now we've got the piece and all its mechanics
Right.
and such. Now, if the piece, here's how we did it. Yeah, if the piece has the king property, then mark king as true.
Yep.
This thing, and that's going to come up later. Then this is the main bit. For each of the pieces mechanics, so for mechanic name in piece mechanics, we're going to grab the mechanic function from the mechanics dictionary.
Yep.
And then we are going to, for each, so the piece under each of its mechanics has a list of params for that mechanic. And for each of those parameters, we are going to plug that param into, we'll talk about this in a second.
Okay.
We're going to plug that param into the mechanic function. It's going to spit out, if there are any, a list of possible turns that are legal, and then
Yep.
we're going to add that list to our list of legal turns.
Yep.
That to be returned at the end.
Yep.
What this is doing is saying, let's mirror the
Right.
params by default
Right.
for the two different colors. So this is the thing that says, okay, it's intuitive that even like black and white both have pawns in regular chess. They actually move opposite directions from each other, but that's not intuitive. What people for human beings, we would think of that as them moving the same direction, and it's just
Right.
a mirror, right?
Right.
And so that's our default here. Our default is if a piece says I can move one square forward, that means forward for white is away from its side of the board, and forward for black is away from its side of the board.
Yep.
So for pieces that can move in all totally symmetrical any direction, which is a lot of the pieces in chess, this actually doesn't do anything. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Because it's taking the negative of all of those offsets, and it's the same set. It's the same group
Right.
at the end. So it doesn't do anything for a bishop. It doesn't do anything for a knight. It only does something for a pawn right now. But it makes sense for it to be the default.
Right.
The other way to do it is to say that we're going to have a different piece for a black pawn and a white pawn. Like those are going to actually be different pieces. And so the starting position for regular chess in this system would not be the same pieces, because one of the sides would have like up pawns and the other side would have down pawns.
Right.
Or to add a mechanic that,
Right.
that pieces had that says, you know, black move, white move, or something like that, and splits move into two mechanics. So
Right.
pawns would have black
Right.
move, white move, black capture, white capture.
Yeah.
And this seems like the easiest of those options.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like right now it's not optional.
It's what? Sorry?
It's not optional. Like it's not just a default.
No, it's not. Yeah, no, it's not optional. It's
It's
if
a
you
it's a
if you
it's
pin
an
a piece
immutable.
that can move that has asymmetric movement,
Yeah.
then it's going to get mirrored
Right.
for the two colors.
Right. Right. And that I think is another thing that we can think about loosening later,
Yeah.
or like parameterizing.
Yeah, and we'll
later.
see how it plays out. To me, it seems like what people think is intuitively true. Like when they see a piece and it can only move up and to the right for white,
Yeah.
they don't want it to be able to only move backwards and to the right if they're black. Like that seems weird.
Right. So what does
They
this do
expect
to what does this invalidate 1.58D chess where white moves up and
yes,
black
actually,
moves
right.
left?
That would have to do something for that.
Yep. Okay.
I don't know what we would do exactly, but I'm sure there's a way to do that fairly.
Yeah, I think that'll be
To do
not too hard.
The way to do that is probably like, so what you want to do is instead of mirroring them, rotate by 90.
Right.
that
So I think what we would need is for the players, I guess the format would be configured for player orientation.
Yeah, this could be, in the case of 1.5, great name, Metallic. It's really cool. Yeah, get it? Because the board looks like a 1.58. It's like, no, nobody gets it. What are you talking about? Anyway.
Mathematicians get it.
Yeah, math jokes. In the case of that one, you could just have this be like a property of the board component, right? The board could say, this is my version of mirroring.
We don't have
You know?
board components.
Right, we don't have that yet, but we're gonna presumably make that anyway.
I
We talked
think
about that earlier, right?
we would make the format configure have the board
Oh, well,
definition in
okay.
its
In that case,
configuration.
it could
Yeah,
just be in that.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
That would
right.
be fine. Yeah, you could make board components, so that would also be fine.
You could. So I've thought about this a lot. Theoretically, any format configuration could be implemented by a game as a sort of like optional singleton configuration component.
Right.
That if a format has, that just feels hacky.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see it going either way, right? Because you could also say, like, as soon as you add a config thing into formats that can hold any kind of data,
Mm-hmm.
then you can actually just put all the components in the config. and
Yes.
you don't
Oh,
need any
totally.
Which, there's lots of reasons not to do that, but none of them are. It would be impossible to do it.
Right. Right.
So I think the answer is, like it often is it's just case by case. Like,
Yeah.
okay, in this case, the only extra thing besides the piece is the board, and why not just put that? Why not just put that in the format? It seems simpler, right?
Yeah.
It just seems simpler.
Yeah, and we're giving options, right? So if we make like, I guess a component can optionally have a config and can optionally have some, or a format can
Right.
optionally have config and optionally have components, and then you can put
Right.
your stuff wherever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
And the community will find the right one because there's a market behind it.
Right. Yeah. It's really the game that decides how much freedom you
Yes.
have there.
Yes,
Right. The
right,
game
yep.
decides, like, okay, how many different kinds of things can I accept in a format, and
Yep.
how many different kinds of components.
Yep.
Like right now, even though you could submit a format component that had all sorts of crazy stuff in the config, the game might not necessarily be able to interpret that.
Right, and would ignore it. And
So it really starts with the game for
Yep.
that stuff. But anyway, so we've gone over the meat of this now. So
Right.
once we go through all the pieces and mechanics, all the params for each of the mechanics, we've got a big list of turns. Then we're going to check if king is still false.
Right.
As in,
we have not found
as
a
we
king.
were going through the squares, none of the pieces king.
Right.
That meant that, and that just means there's no moves. So we're just saying, hey, if you don't have a king, you can't make moves.
Yep.
Can't make turns.
You can't take turns. Yeah.
Can't take turns.
Yeah.
You don't get a turn if you don't have the king, and
Yep.
so then that means we're just going to return a empty turns array.
Yep.
And then we return the turns array, and that's pretty much it. We've got a few helper functions, and we're exporting all of these. Really, the big one is take turn.
Yep.
Right now, we're using register pieces and generate to just get an initial position.
Yep.
Because you can't actually run this function without a position.
Right.
So you need an initial position somehow. So right now we're exporting these to get that. Otherwise, you don't need them. So right now, I only need them to set up that initial position, and I never need it again.
Right.
And string to square is just a nice help function.
So
we have to keep going back and forth between a string version of a point and an array version.
So the reason a user of this library or a piece of client software to this library would of course they need take turn because they need to like run the engine.
Oh yes, generate turns is good for another thing. Yeah.
Right, they need generate turns for their AI.
Yeah. So right now we don't have an AI, but if you have an AI,
it will run generate turns a lot.
Because it wants to check. Because actually, you as a player, you're running generate, right?
Yeah.
Because you're looking at the board and thinking, what would be the best thing for me to do? And in order to let an AI do that, you need to give it access to generate turns.
Right.
So yes, definitely. But anyway, that's all this is right now. Let's move on, I guess, to the actual Mithril app here.
Yeah,
so I guess maybe now would be a good time to just check it out.
Cool.
So here's what we've got so far. So this is here. Let me show you this. So this position, this initial position, is just something that I'm just telling it to do.
You just coded it. You wrote it.
I made a mock piece list. It's not getting these pieces from the meta store or anything like that.
Right.
I just wrote it in here.
Yep.
And I've got a mock starting position.
Yep.
Which is just a dictionary of these string points and either null or an object with a piece ID and a player, as in which we could also say color.
Right.
I don't know which is better. This is working fine.
Yeah, the fact that we're determining that with odd and even makes color a little.
Thought. Yeah, that was my thought. Is that we're actually representing color with a 0 and a 1 anyway. So it seems clearer to call that player than
player
color.
1. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, so using that, we're loading up this board, and it can do all the basic things we want it to do. So it's starting off at white's turn. There's two ways to move pieces as a user here. You can just drag the piece, and as you're dragging, it's going to highlight the possible squares you can move to.
Sweet.
Which is, we definitely shouldn't. That's terrible CSS. I just wanted to prove that I could highlight the right squares. Lichess makes a little green dot appear in the center, which is much nicer.
Pretty.
Yeah, Lichess is a great example for the game feel we want. Like, the pieces make a little click sound when you move. All that stuff, right?
Okay.
So we can probably just steal a lot of that stuff.
Yep.
If you try to do that with a piece that's not going to be a legal move, it's not going to work.
Yep.
And it will also even tell you that you've submitted an illegal move.
Turn. An illegal turn.
Thank you. So the second way to, interesting, if I do that, it stays. If I drag it out of here, it stays highlighted.
Bug.
It's actually maybe not a bug, because the other way to interact with the pieces is to, if I click on the knight, it's going to show me the squares, and I can as well.
Nice.
So I got both of them working simultaneously, which was freaking hate JavaScript. You'll see in the code in a second, but
Yeah.
it took me like an extra 4 hours to be like, so this should be a mouse up, but then that'll
Oh,
trigger
yeah,
before
yeah,
this,
yeah.
so then it needs to be a click here, not a mouse down, or else,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
keeping that stuff straight is such a pain.
Yeah.
But, now it's white's turn again, and if I take the king, it's just going to console log this right now, which again is just to
Sure.
the UI can
Yeah.
the UI knows how to tell that.
Yep.
And now
Our engine, the engine we've built is sufficient for a UI to do what it needs to do.
Yeah. So now none of these moves are legal anymore, and I can't do anything.
Right.
So that's basically doing everything we wanted to. It's also, this board size is bitted, so it's just getting this board size from. Actually, this is a fun little demonstration. I have to actually do this. I don't even. Okay, I'll do this in a second, but I should open the code anyway. So it's generating the board from a set of Cartesian points, basically.
Right.
And what that means is you can just change one of the points to like something floating off in space, and it'll just put it there.
Put it there. Right.
Which is really exactly what you want.
So Buterin chess, which is what I'm naming it because 1.58D is bad.
What's going on here? Why didn't that work? I feel like VS Code is messing with me a little bit here.
Probably.
Oh no! I'm just getting confused by Webpack because this isn't React. Like it packaged my Webpack, so I don't actually running to use the thing anymore, but it won't update.
Right.
It won't update unless I have it watching. So
right.
Now it should do the thing. There you
go. Yep.
So I just moved that down to a different point, and it does not care that they are not continuous.
Right. Which means like setting up the VB chessboard, the 1.58D chessboard.
Yeah, it would not be any harder than what I've already got.
Trivial. Yeah.
It's equally.
Yeah.
Equally.
It's the rotation. It's the player positioning and
yes, that's actually the trickiest thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing we
realized
promotion.
That. Yeah, and promotion.
Promotion should be fairly easy. Promotion should just be a mechanic that we add to the mechanics.
Oh yeah.
Thing. So anyway, so let's just quickly check out how that works. So the majority of the lines in this file are just setting up that initial state. Which definitely this is not the way it would be done. Obviously, it's going to arrive some other way at this initial state, and it's going to get these pieces.
Yep.
Somehow through the SDK.
Yep.
So that will all not be here. None of this will be here. So what we really have going on in this is the index file, which is kind of the main. This is the home base for the JavaScript version of the app. It's also got an index.html, which is just one of these guys. So just not doing anything except for grabbing bin/app, like a lot of these JavaScript apps.
Mm-hmm.
This is where Webpack compiles all of the JavaScript into.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the code we're writing, it's just this. And so what we're doing here is we're managing state in this super hacky way. This is our state management at the moment.
I love it.
We're just declaring state,
right?
And then
it's just
we're just importing that in all our files and setting pieces of it.
Yeah.
So we've got a global state object called state.
That is the singleton pattern.
Yeah. Now the thing that's yucky about is that unlike say in Redux, you can't actually replace the entire state object here.
Yeah.
Right, because it's an imported variable. So you can only replace these bits inside of it,
right.
Which is not necessarily a problem, but it's definitely a restriction. So anyway, so on startup here, we're initiating a game part of the state and a pieces part of the state, and then we're setting them to the things that we just set up up there, and then we are just rendering a component called board.
Okay.
And this is how you. Well, actually, I should be clear. In Mithril, this is a component. So this is also a component called app.
Yep.
So we've got a component called app.
Yep.
The view of app just has board. It doesn't have anything else in it, but it could have other stuff in it.
Yep.
And then we're mounting app.
Yep.
on the document body.
Makes sense.
So then everything else is in board. So we can just go look at board now, which we're just importing from board.js.
Okay.
We imported rules here just to do this stuff, to register the pieces and generate turns for the initial game state.
Gotcha.
Which is, we mentioned that when we were looking at the other library. This is board. So here's board. We've got Mithril again, we've got the rules again, and we've got the state again.
Yep.
We start with some config stuff. This
Yep.
doesn't need to be in here. It could be somewhere else. This is not telling you what shape the board is. It's just like, I could imagine a version of the app where you have like different themes or something like that,
Sure.
right? So you're telling what color light squares and dark squares should be, and generally how big squares should be.
Right.
Then we're setting this constant that we're going to use a bunch, the square size from
Yep.
that config.
Yep.
This we'll ignore for the moment. It's just dragging. This is a JavaScript thing. I don't totally understand why this
Okay.
is necessary, but it works better when I add this. It makes
Right.
the dragging
When
cleaner.
when it doesn't try
It
to
just
bubble up
prevents
events.
default
Yeah.
for drag overs for the entire document.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that and you end up, it just seems to generate events constantly anytime, which isn't necessarily a problem, but just is unnecessary.
Sure.
We really only want those events for the places that can get dragged to, not everywhere.
Right.
Okay, so what's the best way to deal with this stuff? I think the best way is actually backwards. So here's the board component.
Okay.
These are called lifecycle functions.
Yep.
View is the view. So when you mount the component, this is what it's going to do.
Yep.
On init is exactly what it sounds like. It's a function that's going to run sort of like when the component gets mounted or re-rendered.
Okay.
There are a bunch of these other built-in lifecycle functions. We're not using any of them.
Okay.
On init here is doing something called reset board state. And that is up at the top here somewhere. Yeah, so this is just, it's either initializing or resetting the board part of the state.
Yep.
So it's making an object in the state called board that has these things, which are really just used for visualizing the. So it has nothing to do with the state of the game. It's just telling the board.
These are not positions. These are not positions are held somewhere else. This is the visual state of the board.
Yeah, this is telling you these squares should be highlighted.
Yep.
This is telling you that this square should be deselectable now, which is a little confusing. We'll see it in a second.
No, that
it
makes
has
sense.
to do with unhighlighting.
Yep.
And from is just useful for knowing how to submit a turn.
For knowing what?
Because for knowing how to submit a turn to the SDK.
Yep.
So it's saying it's saying this is basically your selected piece, which is going to be your from in any turn that you submit. It's the from square.
Yep.
It could be called selected piece. Either way, it's going to be called two different.
Sure.
It's a little confusing for it to be called from here, but in terms of a turn, it is from. So whatever, we could change it. We could call it something else. So board is on init, initializing that state, and then for view here. So this gives us an idea of how Mithril works. So this M is what's making something a component. It's the main Mithril function. It's the only function we use and it takes in this big input that has usually 3 parts. So let's see if it actually has. It might only have 2 here, but it can have 3. The first part is telling the HTML what type of container to use.
Okay.
And also in this case, the ID. So this is going to give us a div with ID board. And then the second part is telling us kind of what to put in, like what else to put in there.
The children.
Basically. Yeah, children. And then there is no third thing here, but if there's a third thing, you put inside the div. So if we wanted to put like some text or something,
Mm.
you would put a comma and just write like, this is the board or whatever.
Okay.
So what we're doing, this is the meat of the board. And what we're doing here is iterating through, this is the state we initialized earlier, the state and the game part of the state and the position part of that, which is a set of squares, right? And we're looking through all the keys, and then we're gonna output here an array of squares, right? An array of square components that Mithril will render. So we're mapping to the square ID, which is the Cartesian point thing, 0, 1. So we're grabbing, it's a few steps, grabbing what's in the square, so the content of the square, which is either null or a piece.
A piece ID.
And that's also in the state, right? If there's a piece, then we want to know how to visualize it. So we're going to initialize this graphics variable, and we're going to say, hey, if there's a piece, if content isn't null, then here's the key to get the graphics, which we'll see in a second is a link basically. But here it's just a piece of the piece, so it's just there's a graphics object. And then we're going to return another Mithril component that we're adding to our array here, which is called a board square, and this is the state that we're passing into that component. We're passing in a key. This is Mithril's equivalent of, hey, if you're rendering a whole list of things, please give them unique keys. This is Mithril's version of that. The content, which is this thing, what's in the, so this is going to be null or a piece object, it's the simple piece object. So just the piece's nickname and its color, basically. And then whatever we got from the graphics. So everything we should need to render a square, and if needed, a piece on that square.
Cool.
Here's board square. This one's a bit clunkier, mostly because of the JavaScript stuff. It's really not complicated, except for getting the dragging and all that working.
Sure.
So this has some more interesting Mithril stuff in it. This just has V, no other lifecycle functions. vNode, this is virtual node, which is basically the virtual DOM. So Mithril, like React, has a virtual DOM.
Sure.
So this is basically what state did this get passed? It's not any kind of global state. It's what state did this component get passed?
It's like
when
props.
It was right, exactly. It's this stuff basically.
Okay. Yep.
So it's vNode dot attributes ATTRS dot this stuff will give you this stuff.
Okay. Cool.
So going back up here, also vNode dot key gives you key.
Sure.
So we're going to get the coordinates, and those are just the key, but converted back into an array.
Yep.
And then we're going to get the color. And this is the actual color. This is not the player. This is what color square should this be? What color should the square be?
And that's in
which
the
is
config.
something from board config.
Yep.
Then so this defaults to light color, and then it's saying actually, or no, sorry, this is not doing that. This is saying if it's so this may not be the best way to do this. It works for now.
Sure.
This is just saying if the square is if it's an odd number square, like if the two coordinates add up to an odd number, make it a dark square.
Right.
I don't know how well that will work with weird board shapes. This is actually a funny math problem.
Yeah.
That and borders, and how many colors do you need to, how can you automatically do that?
Yeah. So
proper checkerboard.
Yeah. So it actually, like, you could play chess without the colors on the squares.
Yeah, the colors are just quality of life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
so
it. Yeah.
if we add sort of a mechanical meaning to the colors, we should generalize that and just let them add arbitrary properties to squares.
Right. The position could have colors.
Right.
Each square could have a color.
or
could be fine.
or it could have one of the four elements, or it could have
Yeah.
like
Other stuff.
yeah.
Just a
Arbitrary
other
properties.
property. Yeah,
Yep,
other
yep,
properties. Yeah.
yep. Square properties. Yep.
But anyway, we're starting with this. It's just cosmetic. This seems to work okay for now. This is about highlighting the square. This is to happen if you click on a piece, then it's going to tell you where it can move.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you start dragging the piece, it wants to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is us just trying to do this. So we put in this is something we're putting in the state. So it's saying, hey, if this is one of the highlighted squares state,
Yep.
then set it to true.
Yep.
Ignore this. This is more just annoying JavaScript stuff.
Okay.
We can go over it if we need to, but
okay.
I don't remember why this is here off the top of my head. I'm sure we'll get to it.
Yeah.
Here we're putting in the square content variable, which is either going to be nothing or a piece. So we're going to return it either way, which is why we want to establish it here. Here we're grabbing the content and we're saying if there's a piece, again, if the content is not null, then we need to get the piece graphic. So let's try to get that. Let's get the right color, because it's going to be a different graphic for a different player.
Right.
So this is significant because it means every time you submit a component, you need to submit some way of accessing a white image for it and a black image.
Yeah.
Or like an image that's associated with white and associated with black.
Yep.
You could submit them as the same image if you wanted to, but you need to include both for this to work. So we're getting the link. So we got the right color, and then we're looking in graphics. We're starting by looking at graphics local. So this is getting stuff from the app. So this is all the images we already have. So this is if the app has the image. So if graphics local is a thing, get it there. Otherwise, let's say you're submitting a new component, it's not in the app, so you're giving a remote link, then we could handle that here.
Sure. But for this mock,
generally, if you did include local, might as well grab the local ones.
Yeah, totally.
This has no error handling, of course, right? So if you included local and then the links were not valid or something, it would just break.
Right.
And then we're going to set the square content as our third type of component here, which is a border piece. I didn't call this just piece because we've already got piece. That's kind of data. So
piece, piece is a piece type definition.
Right.
Board piece is a visual. Is the piece is a
piece
on the board. Yep.
And this we're passing in the image link, which it's going to use to make the image, and just the same key again. So it has this, and the key is just the square it's on. So it's a helpful piece of data.
Gotcha.
So that's square content now. This is more annoying stuff. So if the square is empty and highlighted, this is just annoying stuff. So then we're returning the square. It's going to be a div with the class square and the ID of the key. Then we're going to include a bunch of properties. This is actually the second one, right? So I think in that first one, it's like we've got the content that goes inside the div, and we didn't include any properties. So on this one, we want properties. So we've got style. So this is just a bunch of CSS. And it's just getting generated by this function. It has a little bit of dynamic stuff in it.
Sure.
So we wanted a function to generate it.
Sure.
There is some that's static. Move to the main CSS file somewhere else. Doesn't need to be in this function. But this stuff is all dynamic, so it needs to be in here.
Right.
So we're generating some CSS for it. Then we're saying on drop, handle drop turn. So this is a turn that you're taking by dragging and dropping. So if you drop it on the square, handle a drop turn. And this is a case where it's nice that the rules are handling illegal turn. So you're free to drop your piece on all sorts of, on other pieces, wherever you want, and it's not going to re-render the board because it's going to throw a legal turn. So we don't even have to worry about that here. And then it's gonna include an on click, which is this handle click turn thing, and this cares if you want the thing to also highlight or not. This, I don't even remember what's going on here.
Okay.
But it's all the stuff that has to do with making sure that the highlight works.
Yeah.
And, right. Like you want it to, when you click, highlight, and then when you click again, de-highlight.
Yeah.
But when you click and hold, you don't want it to de-highlight when you stop, when you let go.
Right.
But then you do want it to be able to
de-highlight
if you click again. And there was just a bunch of this is one of those, like, it's just UX thing, right?
Yeah.
Most other iterations of this felt crappy.
Tons of edge cases.
This particular one feels okay. And again, I just tried to get the same thing that Lichess lets you have both of these options for. I think if you're on a computer, dragging is way nicer. But I'm imagining, hey, if you're on a mobile, you can't drag very easily. You want to be able to click and whatever. So anyway, that's what I did with that. So this is just dealing with that stuff. And then put the square content, which is either nothing or a board piece if there's a piece. And then we just need to look at the last bit. Here's our helper function. So handle drop turn is just returning handle turn. Handle click turn is saying, hey, if highlighted, if you put in true, then return handle turn. But if not, don't do that.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
And there was definitely some reason for that, and I don't want to try to think about it.
Yeah, no, that's
right. And then here's handle turn. So this is doing the actual stuff. This is one of the important functions, right? So we're preventing default just because we generally want to do that when we're doing stuff in JavaScript. Usually the default is something we don't like. So then we're creating the turn that we're looking for here, which is this from thing that we set. You'll see when we set that in a second. It's an on click or on, maybe it's on mouse down, I forget, for pieces. But that's part of the global state. So that's just whatever we clicked on last is going to be from, or whatever we dragged last. And then the 2 is the target ID. So the array, the string to square target ID. And now we're going to try to take the turn. So we're trying to get a new state. It's not a new full state. It's just a new game state, state.game, from the take turn function in the chess library. And then if that throws, it throws. And we don't even need to error handle here.
Right.
That may not be the best way to do it. And we may want to change it so that that returns. In fact, I think we probably do want to do that, because as it is, this doesn't let us do error handling nicely in the UI, right? It just throws. This just throws.
Right.
And if we want to be able to display, like, hey, that was an illegal move because this happened or something. We need to get different information. I think that would be fine and easy to do. That's just not how it works right now.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so if take turn doesn't throw, then we can just go straight to updating the state. So we want to update state.game to the new state we just got. We want to unhighlight any highlighted squares. And if there are no legal turns now, so if this new state doesn't have any legal turns, then we're going to return the correct winner, which we determine by using the turn number. And then we're going to console log the winner or do whatever else we would want to do.
Right. Run the game has been won method.
Right, which this handles state and rendering the same way as all these other. What seems to me the proper way to do that would be to have this update winner in state, and then that will automatically re-render the board if the board touches that piece of state, and the board in its rendering can check if there's a winner and render something different. And that's it for handle turn. And now here's all that CSS we just mentioned. Here's again, there's the highlighting, there's blah blah blah. It's just CSS. Right now I'm doing the sizes with view width. So as you can see,
like
you
that.
get a different size board.
Yep.
Again, Lichess does this really nice way, and I think they're a good model for how the board should look.
Yeah.
Right. It has a little bit of reactive.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It always stays like a really nice size.
Right.
Even when you get it small. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So Lichess is nice in terms of that stuff. But anyway. And then the last thing, the board piece. So here we've got, so we've got, again, just the view function.
Yep.
We're giving it some attributes here.
Yep.
Because this is going to be an image, we want the source to be the image, the link that we got earlier. And we want to set some style stuff. Just the size of, this is all we need right now, so that's all we're doing. And now we need to handle the rest of the ugly JavaScript stuff.
Right.
So the reason we put attributes up here is so that we can stick in extra attributes before we do this part, because these are all conditional. In these other ones, you can see we did it. We often don't do it that way. We just stick the attributes in at the end like this. It's just part of the Mithril call. So I'll just stick them in here, right? Here, since so much stuff was conditional, I just made it here, and then we add things.
Sure.
So we're adding, so we've got the coordinates. We're checking if it's highlighted. If it is highlighted, then we want to add this as on click.
Yeah.
If it's not highlighted, but I think these descriptions might be slightly wrong. This is saying, hey, if it's deselectable, then on mouse we want to deselect. That is, so this is now deselectable, which will make the highlighting go away.
Right. Right.
But it won't submit a turn.
Right.
Won't think that I'm trying to move it somewhere.
That you're trying to move it to where it was.
Yeah, that is an illegal move.
Yeah.
Illegal turn. I mean.
Illegal turn. Yeah.
If the thing you're clicking on is the selected piece, then. Oh, right. This is why this was so annoying. If the thing you're clicking on is the selected piece, then on mouse down, we want to cue a deselect. And this is what lets you say on a drag, I'm going to highlight.
Yeah.
And on a click, I'm going to highlight.
Right. Right.
Because a click is a mouse down and a mouse up event.
Right.
And a drag is also those things, but it starts with just a mouse down.
Right.
So this is a way of dealing with that crap.
Okay.
Basically.
Yeah.
And if none of those things, then just have it say on mouse down, handle
select the piece. Yep.
These descriptions I think are wrong. I guess we could also, this little bit of stuff, this thing where we have to submit here, whether like this is a little messy, maybe this would be better if we handled these attributes like we do the other one. This is declared up here, and then instead of this thing, we just say if highlighted, do this, and if not, don't add it.
I feel like this is one of those things where like we can move forward because this works.
I'm just I'm saying that thoughts than it being important.
Right.
I think that's pretty much everything in here.
Cool.
So it's a bunch of handling, clicky JavaScript stuff, and other than that, it's basically just trying to tell what the from and the to is in order to try to take a turn.
Yeah. So what's next? What
that's a good question.
What is not? Let's see.
Yeah. So let's go.
Let's just like list what's next. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a couple obvious things to next in the Squad Chess app.
Uh-huh.
One of them is, hey, should we just manage state with Redux? This
Sure.
is a slightly janky way of doing it.
I
I
don't.
don't think that's necessarily that important right now, and it's actually working fine.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say it's probably less janky than you're giving it credit for.
yeah, it feels like, hey, we don't need Redux. Actually, almost the same, and it's like 2 lines of code.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, so
I
that
think
what
if it
Redux?
gets really complicated, right? If we're
Yeah,
suddenly managing of state and it's really hard to keep track of where it's
yeah,
happening,
yeah,
then it might start to make sense.
yeah. But I don't think I think we built the engine in such a way that it decouples like all this game like UI engine needs to do is like deliver froms and twos to the
Yeah.
game engine, and it's doing that.
Yep.
So yeah, I see no reason um, to move to Redux.
Yeah.
At
So
all.
the other big question I think here,
Yes, how
uh,
will the app arrive at the
or the
initial
other
location?
next question, right? There are a
Yeah,
bunch of big,
yeah,
but the next obvious one
yeah.
after I did this was, this is not a legitimate way of
No,
getting state. So
no,
so how do we
no.
get there?
Uh,
Which ties into
yeah,
what I wrote down as our to do, which is like, hey, well, how should we start thinking about the Metastore and
yeah, yeah,
curation
yeah,
markets for
yeah,
this?
yeah,
Metastore probably the first thing.
yeah,
So because that's just where it's going to get. That's the answer to this question, right?
yeah.
It's going to get it from the Metastore somehow.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So I think the way to do this is to start with Squad Chess being its own game, um, that like that we put out there, right? And then we take that and build on top of it for automatic chess. But we put Squad Chess through the whole thing. We give it a game component. We put up a Metastore and like a testnet Metastore and a testnet um, curation market, and we run that all with Squad Chess. Um, because
Yeah,
it's
I think
it's
so.
already it's already pretty clear that like Squad Chess, we don't have to go all the way to automatic chess in order to uh, get what we want out of Squad Chess, or get what we want out of an app spec,
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
So it's a little bit less like web native, but I think it's the ease is worth it.
Yeah, the speed I think is.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, like a couple weeks ago, I was feeling like, oh man, these really big projects,
yeah,
because I had been messing around in that chess.js library.
right.
Whoa,
Yeah,
game development is like, this is like a big thing.
yeah,
And you hear stories of like, indie game developer worked for 6 years on
yeah,
one pixel art game. It's like, wow, game time.
yeah. But that's
Um,
5 years of throwing away pixel art.
Right, and like hard coding, like super long.
Yeah.
A game that takes play.
Working on
and
the
just
story,
making
I
the
mean,
levels, making the
yeah,
levels, making
yeah,
more
yeah,
levels,
yeah, yeah.
putting the
Tuning
terrain
it
in,
and tuning it. I
putting
mean,
the squares in.
yeah,
All that.
it's the nice.
Uh,
That's the nice thing about squad games is you don't have to tune it.
yes, that's true.
You let the community tune it.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it could be a total way of. This sort of goes towards there's a genre of game where the developer basically just makes the engine.
Yeah.
And
Oh
then
yeah.
puts it
Yeah,
out there,
right,
and
yeah.
then everybody just fills it in.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
And I'm sure that's not going to be like all games become that, but I could see a lot of games that people just do that way, and then it
Mhm.
working great, and that's
Mhm.
sounds exciting to me.
Yep. Me too.
But anyway, now I'm feeling like, wow, we're totally going to get this done in Q1.
Yeah. I think
I'm
we
feeling
will.
good about
I think we will.
Getting this
Yeah.
Squad Chess into
Yeah.
an alpha.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, but what will that take? So we need a way of getting basically loading the formats
Yeah.
from the Metastore, which we can totally do that from a mock Metastore. I think we just like wait to see how far along Holochain is. Uh, mm, our mock Metastore isn't persistent like across loads, so we can
Um,
do it with with the networking shim.
that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
I think we can do it with the networking shim, and we can also make. I think we can make that Mach 1 persistent across loads in a stupid way pretty
Right.
easily if we want
Right.
to.
With like local
I mean,
storage.
we could just
Yeah.
put it in a freaking text file if we
Yeah,
want to,
yeah,
and
yeah,
have
yeah,
people click a button and load
Right.
the text file in.
Right, right.
Whatever.
Or just like everybody's we do the stupid the shim idea and just have everybody send everybody what's in their text file and everybody's like, "Oh, I'll save that too."
Yeah, I think the easiest thing might be to do that so that I don't have
Yeah.
to redo it every time.
Yeah, we can just presume good faith for
Yeah,
this period.
and it's like this people are just messing around at this point anyway, right? So if someone acts in bad faith, it's sort of like, I mean, it's a game, right? It's sort of like you're playing, somebody's being like a total dick. It's like, what are you trying to achieve? You know, like
Right,
that's
right.
the stage we're at right now. So
Right.
I'm not worried
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, so we need Squatch to load components and formats
Yeah.
from
A Metastore.
the SDK.
Yeah.
Say the SDK.
Yeah, from the
because
SDK. Yeah.
The SDK could use the mock
Yep. Yep. Yep.
connection. Mock Metastore. Um, so that's one.
Yep. We need promotion.
We also want. Okay, Squatch has promotion mechanic.
Yeah, and I think it's worth, because Vitalik is who Vitalik is. I think it's worth putting in the player orientation configuration.
Sure. Yeah, I guess we could put that on the list. It's definitely a funky one. I wouldn't as one of the initial mechanics otherwise. But
Right. No, only because Vitalik happened to do this. I would call orientation a configuration, not a mechanic.
Oh yeah, right. Right. The idea was that this would go in the format.
In the format config. Yep. So we need to update the Metastore to give formats configs.
Right. I'll just make that a separate to do.
Yep.
Update or to accept config and format definitions.
Yep.
A thing that will be soon, but maybe not. Maybe after this, will be to let people submit new definitions from Squad Chess.
Right.
But I don't see a reason. I think it makes total sense to have it load before we add that, because that requires us to add a bunch of buy stuff.
Yeah. I think
which is not like a big deal, but
I think our early
anyway.
if we go with your text file idea,
Yeah.
I think our shim that just like whoever you're connected to, you take the union of your two files.
Yeah.
And then just manually editing those files for our first.
Oh, right.
For our first.
That's a nice idea, actually. Submission just by writing into the file.
Yep.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
But yeah, and with our first 10 fans, they're like the first people we're trying to get are going to be game developers, right? Like,
right.
The minimum viable audience right now is a couple of game developers.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense to do as the first.
Yeah,
that's the first way of doing it. I would say maybe the next one after the Squad Chess website. That gives you a nicer way of submitting definitions.
Right. Which can be pretty simple.
Which is also totally doable. But
I mean, we've built the interface before. We've built it in React, but
yeah. Well, and also I think I think we want to shoot even easier than that. If
sure.
Right, something where it's just you give the piece a name and then you just choose list of mechanics or something.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
gotcha.
And then
Yes,
it
yes,
gives you
yes,
maybe like
yes,
and it tells you to like
yes.
click offsets that the
Right,
piece
right.
for each mechanic or something like that.
Yep.
Um, that kind of thing where it's like you really don't have to. Did I put the bracket in the right place?
Yeah.
when
Right.
you're submitting
Right.
things,
Right. 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 I like that.
But yeah, I definitely like the idea of just having um, and just seeing if it works.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. Okay, cool. The SDK. Should we put that in here? Let's put that's from the SDK. So that would mean making the mock Metastore connection read from a text file.
Yes. Yep.
How should that work? Do you think? Like, it has to be a specific text file, right? Or
Yeah, and it can be configurable, and
yeah, I guess it can be.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I guess that can be a thing
There's a
that
few.
gets configured in the SDK.
Yep.
Like the SDK can tell the Metastore which text file to look at.
Yep.
Yeah, so that should be fine then.
And then also whether or not to connect to some DHT, right? Like whether to use the IPFS libp2p shim or whether or not to.
Yeah, so that's like, well, right. So we should actually say can read and write.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah, because if you
if it can do this, then the shim already does the rest of it.
That's true.
More or less.
So the shim right now is in the Rochambeau game. We should move the shim to the Metastore and optionally turn it on and off, or to the mock Metastore and optionally turn it on and off.
Actually, I would say we should move it. Yeah, I guess eventually it will supposedly be in the Metastore, so it should go.
Yep.
I was gonna say it should be in the SDK, but it should be in the Metastore. Because Holochain claims that it's going to do that.
No, maybe it should. Maybe it should be in the SDK, because that way we can shim whether we have the mock backend or the Holochain backend that just doesn't have the networking yet.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, there's probably a way to do that in Metastore as well, like mock P2P and separate out.
Oh, sure. But then we'd have to
has a different.
Yeah. Then we have to implement it.
I feel like whatever.
In JavaScript and in Rust and.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I meant the Metastore API.
I see.
The SDK part.
Yeah.
I guess that's just part of the SDK anyway. So.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that they're the same thing. That's where it would have gone. It wouldn't have gone in the combined one.
Right.
Okay, so that makes sense. Move P2P shim from Rochambeau to SDK.
Yep.
I'll say Metastore.
Yep.
API.
Yep.
In the SDK.
Yep.
Okay, that's a bunch of stuff. This feels great to have the very concrete to-dos.
Yes.
Like they're not tiny and they're not
Yeah.
like huge and nebulous, but they're also not like change this one word to another word.
Yeah.
You know?
And they're not like
I did it, but the big problem is like staring me scary.
Right. They're not like figure out how to tackle this giant problem. Like
figure out Holochain network.
Yeah. What the hell are we gonna do about this thing?
Design to do Monday. Design a game.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I think that's pretty good.
Those are great.
What else? If we have all of those, are we done with the Q1?
I think the next thing to add would be better, just more UI stuff.
So we would need also. I think we should do curation market.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that first. Actually,
Yeah.
Let's talk about curation market. So it's the nice thing about the Metastore is that you can. It's pretty intuitive to imagine a valid. Okay, yeah, you can. It's
You're
doing everything it's supposed to do.
you're starting to cut out in a weird way
Oh,
that does not feel like internet.
maybe I did
It
something weird to the mic. Is
it
this better?
maybe. Yeah, it feels like a clip.
Yeah, maybe there was a connection that came loose. Is it better? It's better now.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, the Metastore mocking that makes perfect sense to me.
Yep.
I think we can make a mock that basically feels like you don't know it's there and it's doing everything that the real thing would do.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not as obvious to me how to do. So, like, how full of a mock do we want? We want to just not mock it and put it on a test set and do it for real?
Yeah.
What else? What do we want to do?
I think.
Yeah, the good the good part about the curation market is that Ethereum like works.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It may be like, it may like as soon as you add Ethereum to your project, like the UX gets like a -13 score. So
Right.
it's like
Right. Right.
minus
Right.
13 from your UX.
Right.
But it does work.
It does work. It does work. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think we throw something up on one of the test nets and just try it.
Yeah, and we do need to have a way to interact with that.
Yes.
Right? That
Yes.
can't just be like, oh, edit it. It could. I mean, if we wanted to go max minimal,
Yeah.
we would just tell people, oh, if you need to submit something, just submit it on submit it in SquadChess and then go to Redux and submit and run this function on testnet. Not
Yeah.
Redux. What is it called?
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, the IDE, the online
Yeah.
IDE that we used
I don't remember.
at ETH Boston.
It's not called Redux.
No.
Ethereum. That would be too. There's no way they would call it that. Ethereum. It's not called React. It's not. It starts with R.
Remix.
Remix. Yeah. Go to Remix and
I mean,
do it there.
that's not the worst place to start. I think we want to get
the worst place to start.
I think we want to get past that.
Pretty shitty place to
Yeah.
start.
I think we want to get past it in Q1, but
Yeah. I don't want to have a flow where I'm asking people to go to this site
yeah.
and like submit something to
But
the
let's-
mock Metastore and then go
Yeah.
over here, also do something else with the same data in Remix,
Right.
and have to like, and then have
I mean,
to like be logged into MetaMask.
Although, like,
and
look,
do that.
who are we going for in Q1, right? Who do we want to get excited in
I
Q1?
think we're definitely going for developers.
right.
I would like to not have to go to people who are already Ethereum experts.
Sure, but let's start by finding 2 Ethereum experts who are into game development, or 2 people who are into game development that are at least excited about learning Ethereum, right? Let's find 1 or 2
Yeah, I
or
suppose
3 people that are that and get them excited, because that's where that's the minimum. That's the maximally interested
I mean, I agree with that. I just
group.
and it's doing all the things we want it to do.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be that much work to make a button to do that.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
But
And I just feel like might as well do that.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. Again, it's one of those like it is a precursor. If everything's there, then there's not going to be anything like on the road to getting that button on
Right.
SquadChess. It's going to be the remix thing. Like,
Right.
It's going to be there.
Right.
So it's sort of
Right.
a question of timing.
Right. Yep.
I'm
And-
not going to dispute that that's on the road. Yeah.
And if we can find people who are interested before we've made that button, we can leverage Remix, and
Yeah.
I think we should be trying to find people who are willing to have Remix leveraged.
Yeah, and our testing process can
Mhm.
okay, yes. Well, here's one issue with that, right? So the curation market has at least 2 user endpoints. One of them is submitting and creating a new curved bond,
Mhm.
and the other one is buying or selling stuff from
Mhm.
especially in this case buying,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the way people are, I guess, selling as well.
Mm-hmm.
But for like an average end user, I want to
Yeah.
play this chess. We're gonna make you buy this and this.
Right. Right.
Um, that is definitely kind of rough. If we
Oh,
have,
yeah. No, it's kind of rough.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's for sure kind of rough.
yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
we're like spanning
No, that's
the
fine. It'll be fine.
spanning the gap and then making the
Yeah.
bridge better, right?
We'll do baby steps, right? Like
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
probably start with just tokens for the game. Just like
Mm-hmm.
there's a bond for squad chess.
Yep.
I guess there's bonds for all of them, right? But
Of course. Yep.
you have to buy a token to play squad chess or something like that.
Yep.
Right? Just make a thing like that and just start there, so that when people buy something, they just have to buy something once.
Yeah. You have to buy the game
Because
and you have to buy the format.
or that. I don't want to have a system right away where you buy like 13 different pieces,
Right.
separately. Like
Right.
that sounds like a pain in the ass.
Right.
And I think we can. This is where the licensing shit hits the fan, right?
Oh
Where
yeah.
we're like,
Yeah.
okay, we actually come up against these
Yeah.
UX
Yeah.
issues where we're
Yeah.
like, okay,
Well,
how might this revenue share work? Is it just going to be that my piece has licensing rules that says,
Yeah.
hey, if you're making money and you're using this piece,
yeah.
send some of the money to this address.
Right. No.
And,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Which I actually think is a totally legit way to do it, except for how do you know how much money to send, which is a surprisingly tricky
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. But I think what we need to do is build it on a test net, start doing it, and start thinking through, like, once we've got some knobs to turn,
Yeah.
start like acting through in our minds and playing different roles and different sort of pieces of this social coordination, like how people will behave and what their motivations are, and then start like best case, find some crypto economic solution. Second best case, find some social DAO solution. Third best case, find some like export it to the meat space legal system.
Yeah.
But only once we've got something where it's like, oh, it's just horrible to use, and that's why we need to come up with something better. Like, you just have to own literally everything. Like, you have to own the game, you have to own the format, you have to own every component.
Right.
That's like naive attempt number one. This is terrible. Right. Is there a contract that we can write that that keeps this sort of like financial property intact, but makes everything else much easier? Like,
yeah, and there totally might be, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are. I think there's that index.
Index fund. Yeah.
Index fund. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the really nice thing about curve bonds, or one of, I mean, maybe one of them, but the fact that like you can make it so a function goes off and buys from a bunch of curve bonds.
Yes.
Does a bunch of stuff, and the end user only has to
buys one thing, and that in turn goes and does a bunch of others. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would like to build those before I worry about DAOs and licenses.
Yeah, I honestly don't even think we should think because a lot of that stuff can just be off chain.
Yeah.
If people want a DAO, they can even launch their own DAO.
Yeah. They can start a colony. They can do whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
For now, we're going to be dealing with individual making contributions.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's totally fine.
Yep.
I think the DAO becomes useful when there's a ton of people doing things, and when DAOs are actually good at stuff.
Yeah.
If they ever are, right? Like when it's better for you to have a DAO, because like there's already stuff about this that's very DAO-y, right? Like you don't need DAOs in set match games to have community balanced games.
Right.
All you need is the submission and the curation market stuff.
Yeah.
And the community can sort of balance the game itself.
Yep.
The DAOs are for managing
is this content
ongoing development of stuff,
right?
Ongoing development of a game,
and is this content against some terms of service?
Yes, that's definitely true. Yeah, depending on how we feel, we may want to do like some kind of umbrella DAO.
Yep.
Sooner rather than later. But in terms of giving everybody a DAO for their definition.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we start super draconian and we just give both of our Ethereum addresses 100% dictatorial rights to remove absolutely anything. Yeah. And if that stifles adoption, we can deal with that when we get there.
Yeah.
And we should also give ourselves the ability to replace ourselves with less draconian methods. But I think we should build that in from the very beginning. So all of these contracts should just have a self-destruct button that we can push and a replace the person that can push this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. Yeah, and we want to move towards this.
You've broken up again.
Okay, it must be a connection thing because I didn't mess with I didn't mess with anything.
I think
Is it better?
I heard that. Is it better? I think it may be a volume thing.
That's interesting.
You know how Discord has that clip thing?
Is it just like that I'm cutting off?
Yes.
That's probably what it is because I haven't messed with that setting in this app, right?
Yeah. It's almost as if you're leaning back and getting a little bit far away from the mic and then cutting out. It is automatically determining your sensitivity.
Hello. Yeah, this should be much better now.
Cool.
I mean, we'll see if it is, but I just lowered it.
Yeah. Looks good.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that we want to move towards a system where that DAO is governed crypto economically, right?
Yeah.
So that people that are contributing are somehow getting reputation in that DAO. So we want the stakeholders of the system to be responsible for moderating the system as well, right? So it's the people that are contributing a lot and playing a lot and just generally investing themselves in it have say in what's on the platform. And if that community splits, they can fork, right? And that's how it go.
Fork if you wanna.
Yeah, it's I like hanging out in the social justice steam.
Right.
We kick off all the racist games. And it's but my friend he likes hanging out in the fascist steam.
Fascist steam. Yeah.
Yeah. Where they've got all those really horrible games.
Yeah.
The Gamergate steam.
Ugh. See, and I want to be able to delete Gamergate Steam at least at the beginning.
I mean, this is one of the questions that's just around these days.
No, I know.
What is the future of that stuff? Are we just headed to a world where it's people are allowed to be as terrible as they want as long as they're in their own community and they're not actively attacking other people, but they're allowed to just be in there being mega ultra toxic because we can't stop them and free speech or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know the answers to that.
So we can stop them because we can write into the contracts a self-destruct that we can hit, and I would like to start there. And
I think that's a good.
Yes, let that conversation happen, but.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
We should just, whatever we do with that, we should just imagine what happens when a DAO has this power.
Yes, totally.
As long as we do that.
Yes.
But that is the logical way of doing censorship right now in the system, right? Is you take all the assets.
Also,
you destroy the assets.
Right. Also, censorship is if such a good problem to have.
Right, of course.
We don't have to worry about it at all. We can just do the completely dumb, naive thing, or even plan to do the completely dumb, naive thing right now. And then if we're at the point where that's the bottleneck, we've done a phenomenal job, and I'm very happy.
Yeah. Yeah, we just want to make sure that whatever we set up at the beginning is can be changed in some way later.
Can be destroyed if it turns maniacally evil.
But I mean, also our own position of power, right?
Yes.
We don't want to be in a position where like it suddenly grows, but now we don't have a good way of decentralizing it.
Yes.
You know.
Right.
At least unless we want it to be centralized, you know, in which case whatever.
We don't have to push.
We don't want to be in a situation where we have this plan and now suddenly there's going to be this super awkward thing where you have to like redeploy and everybody has to switch this to this and you know,
and that'll be easy, very easy to implement. Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Yeah.
So do we have anything just for the just back to the curation market? Do we have anything that we can put in to do? I mean, I think deploy a testnet curation market.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I haven't looked at that code in a long time, but
I'll take a look.
We basically had it all.
I think so.
Ready, right?
I think so.
I think we have the tests. The Ganache tests are working. Last I checked.
Yeah.
Deploy a test.
I'll wanna put in the sort of self-destruct stuff, but again, that's gonna be very, very quick. There may be a few other small things, but I mean, otherwise, I think we're very, very close to that too.
We'll want to start thinking about actual curation at some point.
Right.
The actual curation part of it, where like Squad Chess can show you the top 10 formats or whatever.
Right.
But the functions are in there in the curation market.
Right.
Maybe some of that stuff should actually be in the SDK, right? Some of the actual curation shouldn't be necessarily exported to the game. Maybe the SDK should have a function that's like show the top 10 games by net asset. Some basic stuff like that, as well as the generalized things that would let them sort by whatever they want.
And again, we can mock that functionality for a little while. So we can say, we can make a function that says, show me the top 10 games, and it actually just shows you the 10 most recent games. It's like, okay, fine.
Yeah, right.
We can start building things with this, knowing that it's wrong, but the bug, it's like an acceptable bug for a while.
Right. Yeah. And doing that stuff will, even if it's a mock, if it's actually connecting to Web3, that will still mean Squad Chess needs a connection to Web3. So we may want to hold off on that for a little while if we're depending on
that's true.
Remix to do the Web3 stuff. But that's not something we would want to wait too long on because that's obviously a big part of the user experience. But I don't think we need to put that in right now. I think that could be in the next, right? Like if we do all these things, right, we get, we use the mock metastore to load stuff and submit stuff there. And then we deploy a testnet curation market, and we make sure it's possible to buy things and submit things and curate things. I guess you won't really be able to curate very easily there. So it will be hard to mock the curation.
Without faking data, right?
Yeah, because you can't. Yeah, there's no good way to like grab the top 10 things out of Remix or whatever.
No.
But that's okay. What I was going to say is that once we've done all the stuff in these current to-dos, then I think it might make sense to, in terms of development, the next thing would be to like start putting more of that into the Squad Chess UI, right? Like having more of like, okay, maybe the submission is in there now, and maybe there's a Web3 connection in there now, and you can load the curation in there, and that won't be that much to add once this stuff is all done.
Right. Yep.
And it makes sense to think of that as like, okay, that's the next phase of the UI stuff.
Yeah. I think the other thing in the UI is multiplayer.
Ah, right, of course. Yeah, that should be a to do actually,
Yep.
probably. Um, I'll just write multiplayer.
Right.
That definitely has to do with the shim,
Yes.
unless we want to create the connection between players in some other way. But why do it in another way if we already have the shim?
Yep. Yep.
Um, that I'm sure will not be a super complicated thing, but
No, but it might
require
be a
little bit of thought.
finicky thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it requires a little bit of thinking about asynchronousness and
Yep.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. And as we've seen, the communication over the libp2p network, the IPFS libp2p network could be pretty slow.
Yeah, it definitely can be pretty slow. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know. We can find other ways.
Yeah. I mean, there's direct P2P web connections. I just didn't learn how to use them.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's not that hard to broadcast, to just do the matchmaking through
Right.
the IPFS, and then what you're actually passing each other is a way to connect better.
Right.
And then you establish the better connection, do the handshake or whatever you need to do, and now you've just got a good connection between each other. And you can pass back and forth your Metastore stuff. You can pass back and forth your game state stuff.
Yep.
And for the game. The only thing we're really trying to do with the game is make sure that both players can arrive at the result of the game and agree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like, we just want to make sure that once one player thinks the game is over and thinks one person won, there's no way that the other player could
Right.
have another thing that's like, that's not what my board looks like.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's like, huh?
Yeah.
And I don't think we have to worry too much about being cheat proof.
No.
But
No.
just we just want to make sure that it works, right? That
Yeah,
you submit
it's
moves
funny.
and they submit moves and it works.
We're not making this game to be one that lots of players adopt. We are making this game to be one that is an example to developers who know how to do anti-cheat stuff for their own games.
Right.
How to do this? Yeah.
Yeah, we're not trying to show people how to make serverless games.
No.
Right? That's not what we're doing here.
No.
So we don't need to do that. We don't need to do a good job.
In fact, we could think about running this on a server somehow. We don't need to do this completely P2P.
Yeah, my sense is that it's such little game data to pass back and forth that it would be fine to do it P2P, but maybe not.
But the discovery and the shim would be much easier with a server.
Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna have to put something online anyway,
like a web page.
It's not gonna be which isn't
yeah.
which isn't a server, but it's well, if we're already paying for
right.
Why not just pay for the server too?
Yeah.
What is it going to be, $7 on Heroku or something like that?
Not much. Yeah.
So that may make sense. Just say well, why are we doing it P2P at all? It's nice for us to learn about the P2P stuff.
Yeah. But we actually honestly don't expect most of the games to be P2P.
If we're mocking the holochain stuff using a server, then we really are mock. That's a true mock.
Yeah.
Right. It really won't be working that way.
Yeah.
But it's not like the way we're doing it now proves that holochain's going to work someday.
Right.
It's
right.
just as much up to them as it was before.
Yep. Cool. I think.
In fact, this is ridiculous, but holochain even works that way. You can replace holochain's networking with the server for us.
Yes.
And it would, and the rest of holochain would still work. It would just not work for any other holochain apps.
Yes. Right.
For people playing squad chess, it would work.
Right.
They would all have their local hash table, and like they just pass the stuff back and forth over some server.
Sure. Sure, that's true.
And like it would be functional holochain.
That's true. Interesting.
That's a funny idea. That would really be like mocking just the networking.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
holochain.
Yeah. All right.
My dog wants to go outside. He's
Yep.
doing the,
We are at
Don't
2.
you love me? Come on, look how much you love me.
We are at 2:21.
You just want something.
And I think we've made great progress this week. We're making faster progress than I was expecting. And we've got a lot of good, meaty things to dive into next. So
Yeah, I feel good about it.
yeah, man.
Okay. That feels good.
So we'll end it here. Thanks for watching. Anybody who did or does in the future, and we'll keep doing this.
Keep on rocking in the free world.
Keep on rocking in the free
What do people
world.
say?
I don't know.
Radio sign-offs.
BW10. All right,
You're right.
we're done.